He's supposed to be.
What you good? Right.
Did you?
This year?
I've just been working on some parts.
Nick? Nick?
Good. Yeah, he gone, he got it,
Okay.
Can we start? Let me call to order the Highlands Town Board meeting for Thursday, May 15th, 2025. And we see, Nick, can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
Good, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Yeah.
All right, our first item would be a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Now, if we'll all stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our third item on the agenda is the statement of conflict of interest that is posted on the agenda. And I just call that attention to the board members. If there's any conflict of interest on any item of business we'll be conducting tonight, of course, you should declare that. The next item, number 4, is public comment. And at this point, I will open the floor. If anyone would like to make a public comment, they can come to the table, state your name, please, and we'd appreciate you keeping your comment within 3 minutes or so. So at this time, I'll open the floor for public comment. I will determine that we have no one wishing to make a public comment tonight, so we will now move on to our next item, which is to review and approve the agenda. Do we have any changes to the proposed agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add number 15, former Playhouse Building asbestos report.
Okay, that came in this week, so we can cover that at this meeting. So we'll add that to the agenda or the proposed agenda. Any more changes? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. We have an agenda. Okay, the next item would be the approval of the April 17th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any changes, corrections, or clarifications?
Move that be approved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. The next would be the approval of the April 23rd special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes, corrections to those meetings?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then finally, the approval of the May 1st special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes or corrections to those meeting minutes?
Move that be approved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item will be the report, starting with the mayor's report. I will be hosting or having a community coffee with the mayor tomorrow at the Hudson Library at at 11 a.m. And I've changed that format to that coffee this year to where it occurs right after a board meeting, the Friday after a board meeting. I'll be reviewing what we covered here tonight and doing an outline. I have a presentation concerning the proposed budget that we'll be considering tonight. Other thing I wanted to say, I had the honor and pleasure of going to the Highlands School Honors Day, where all the graduates march in and receive scholarships. And we, of course, had the Highlands Town scholarships. Our financial director, Rebecca Schuler, was with me and assisted in making those presentations. I want to thank the committee that worked on making the determination of the scholarships. I especially want to thank donors who over the last few years have been contributing to the scholarship. Our endowment now for that scholarship program is well over $1 million. And that's a very good sign that people are committed to supporting the advanced education of our young graduates at the Highlands School. Also want to thank Commissioner Steeler for his work on putting on the golf tournament this year. As always, that's a success, and it really helps in meeting the needs of giving scholarships to the graduating students, as well as the Three Rivers trout fishing tournament that Chris Wiltz and Hillary Wiltz worked so hard to put on. That too contributes to the scholarship fund. And what those two programs do, it helps us avoid cutting into the endowment. We keep building that up to where we can meet the scholarship needs from interest from the endowment and from these fundraisers each year. This year, the town awarded $80,000 in scholarships to graduates of the Highlands School. About 14 were the current graduates, and then we had another group of students who are currently enrolled in programs beyond high school, advanced education and training, and they too, of course, receive scholarship support. So it's a real successful program, and I appreciate everybody's work in sustaining this important scholarship program, as well as I would say this. There were so many wonderful organizations, nonprofits in this community that also provide scholarships to these young people. So it was just a great day to be there and see all of the presentations of these scholarships. That's all I have to say about the scholarship, but I will talk about HB 765. That is that omnibus bill that would really change the way a town in North Carolina can do land use and zoning. Some of the more onerous type provisions in it, such as holding elected officials personally liable over those kind of decisions. It's my understanding that type of language has been removed from the bill. Also, I've been asked this week a lot about the Senate Bill 291 that would legalize short-term rentals in all zones throughout the state. I know the League of Municipalities is still tracking that bill. It did not make crossover, but that doesn't mean it can't move forward in some shape and form as the legislative session continues. And then finally, I want to tell you that on May 26th through Memorial Day and into the first days of June, I'm going to be kind of out of pocket for a change. And I probably will not be writing my weekly column or doing any updates or anything. My wife is going to have a one-person show in a community art center in Long Island, New York. And I'm going to be her assistant in helping her transport those paintings and then helping her hang that show. And then there'll be a reception and so forth. So, I'm going to be kind of out of pocket, and, that's something that I'm very proud of what she's done. And over the years as mayor, I've always been telling her, well, my dear, you need to adjust your schedule because I've got something to do related to the town. I've decided in this special moment, she's going to tell me what to do instead of me telling her what to do. So I just want to let everybody know, if you don't see me around, that's what I'm doing. So with that, that's all I have to say. Do the commissioners have any updates or reports they'd like to make? Okay.
Today.
All right, and then I'll call on the town manager for his report.
A couple of meetings ago, the board had asked to see if the DOT would move the center line on South Fourth Street. We have had a hard time getting an answer from them. It sounds like the email I received this afternoon was positive. They're still reviewing it, but they felt like that they would probably allow it to be moved over. The only problem is they're way behind on striping. So they said it would be later on in the year before they would get to it if they approve it. So he's going to keep me updated the next few days with that. I'll let the board know as we go forward, and that would improve those vehicles hanging out on the angled parking on South Fourth Street. The Dog Mountain water line replacement, the bid opening will be next Thursday, May 22nd. Hopefully we have 3 bids. If so, we will move forward with that project. Hopefully have it to the board in June, if not July, depending on how long it's going to take them to review the documents. If we have 2 bids, obviously they'll have to re-advertise for 2 to 3 weeks, and then it's pushed out a little bit
So
further.
we've only got 2 so far?
No, we had 2 show up to pre-bid meeting and others interested that wasn't at the pre-bid meeting. So we're hoping we at least get 3 so that we can move forward. The engineer did go over the timeline with us, and the timeline I had shared with you earlier in the year is probably going to be a little lengthy. It looks like it'll probably be September, if not October, before the review is put together by the engineer. The bid documents are put together, signed, the performance bonds are together. So it's going to take a little bit more time, which may be better this later on in the year, in the fall, because the traffic in and out of Dog Mountain community is going to basically block the road. So, and I've been keeping those folks updated. We'll continue to do that as we progress forward. Lester said the gym floor will be refinished, I think tomorrow. Is that right, Lester? So the gym will be closed until next Wednesday. So everybody just keep that in mind. And then town hall will be closed Monday, May 26th for Memorial Day observation. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 8 is the consent agenda. Any questions concerning the items in your packet of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. All right, our next item is Captain Mike Jolly's retirement ceremony. And let me just open this up by saying we had a wonderful pre-ceremony or party or recognition earlier this afternoon. I appreciate Andrea Holland, our police chief, for making sure that went very smoothly, and it was a great event. I think it was really a tribute to Mike Jolly that so many of his fellow law enforcement officers, not just the Highlands Police, but the sheriff's department, and all of the colleagues that he had worked with, and many citizens and people that he had worked with showed up to pay tribute to the work of Captain Jolly. So with that said, we have a special presentation tonight, and I'd like Chief Holland to come forward, and then also ask Mike to come forward. And Chief, I think his family should come forward too. And
Okay.
Words?
I would. I don't know if there's much left to say. I get emotional during these things. Mike and I work. He's 20 years and I'm going on, 2007, if y'all do that. He was one of the first people I met up here, and the captain, RL, of course. And I had mentioned earlier, I'll go this way. I had mentioned earlier that, years ago, they didn't really embrace women in law enforcement. That was a known thing, but he came from a large agency that, had a diverse group of individuals working. And, so he didn't have a problem with that. And he took me under his wing and we really became really good friends, I believe. And I'm gonna apologize, I called him my work husband. So, he called me his work wife, and I probably got on his nerves a lot, but I never could have had a better friend in this career. And, thank you for everything you've done for this town, this department, mentoring all of us as we've come through, those doors, and maybe in the positions you've been and all the positions you've held, school resource officer, patrol officer, lieutenant captain, and you've done a wonderful job. Motorcycle cop in Florida, but not here. I tried. But it was one of those segues, and they didn't want anything. So I thought it was a great idea. However, we did not. So thank you for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a display that was revealed this afternoon, all of the badges from all the police departments and so forth, but really, the real honor of a distinguished professional police officer is that we present his badge and his service weapon. So, Mike, we want to get to this, and I want to add one other thing. It's brought out at the event this afternoon. It's the idea that a police officer always on duty, you have that telephone over your head that goes off, and anytime you have to respond regardless of where you are. And for your family, I know that they will be delighted to enjoy you being with them without always having over your head that idea, I've got to drop everything I'm doing and go respond to a police matter. So, well done, and we hope that you have a great week.
We met saying that.
Okay, our next item would be item 10, the Highlands Cashiers Players 30th Anniversary Request. And was Rick Siegel, he might be performing tonight. They are? Okay, Josh, would you like to kind of summarize then what the request is? Or,
I think what was, the request was, and Lester may know a little bit more than I do on this, there was this 30th anniversary of the Highlands Cashiers Community Players. Want to have an event down at the park, and would like to serve alcohol, is that correct, Lester? And they want to just get approval because they were serving alcohol, get approval through the board to do so.
So what is the event? It's a, like a fundraising type event, or is it a?
Now, I think it was just recognition of the,
Picnic for all the people that have been involved in inviting the community to buy this word celebration, little kind of celebration.
They're not selling anything, they're just having,
Right, selling or
Drinks and
raising
wine.
money, they're just
Yeah.
No,
saying,
it's not mine.
yeah.
this is Sunday, June 8th.
yeah.
yes,
Sunday,
Sunday,
June
June 8th, from 1 to 3
1 to
p.m.
3.
It's only 2 hours.
I don't have a problem.
Do I have a motion to
Make a motion
approve?
to approve.
Second,
All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand, saying aye. Thank you. All right, our next item, the Visitor Center property discussion. Let me, lead off the discussion. And since that last meeting, some people have come to me and said that I seem to be upset, out of control, or irritated when we had this last discussion about the lease at the chamber. I will say this, I was surprised, I was caught off guard, because we had been working with the folks at the chamber about a lease which would involve an agreement that they would pay for landscaping at $40,000. Our town attorney sent a copy of that lease. We followed up by asking, well, do you have any questions or comments or anything like that? So when we had that item on the agenda, I thought that would be what would take place. Instead, we went back to the idea of they should have free rent and so forth. And that was, a surprise to me. And I think for a number of people on this board, it was a surprise because we didn't anticipate that. Commissioner Weller made the motion that we should just simply let the chamber and the visitor center have that property rent-free, like similar arrangements are made with the post office property. We ended that whole discussion by saying that we have our town attorney look at the legality of that and what are the options. And then we'd come back and just have a discussion of this at this meeting. So I'm going to ask Nick Tosco, our town attorney, to give his review of the idea and the options that we have. So Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, so you summarized it pretty well. The options really where we're at currently is we have the lease that we've sent that proposes to keep the rent as it is. That's important to point out that it was, I would guess, made reference that we were charging rent, which the town is not doing. It's a landscaping payment that is being made. And that was the lease. We revised the lease and sent it to them. And so the option is to proceed. Option one is proceed with that lease as amended, or not as amended. That's option one. Option two, the idea was mentioned of what if the town conveyed the visitor center and chamber to the chamber. And there is a statute that allows for that to happen via, a private conveyance rather than having to go through a normal property disposal process. And so that can happen. It with a reversionary interest, which that would just say that basically if the property is conveyed to the chamber, that it would have to be used for the purpose of a visitor center chamber. And if it were ceased doing that, that it would revert back to the town. So option two is to do it like that without monetary consideration, meaning without any payment to the town. The statute does allow for that conveyance to happen, and the consideration or the payment would be their promise to keep it up for a visitor center and chamber. That would be the public purpose. Option three would be to convey under that same statute, but to receive payment in the form of consideration money, while also keeping a reversionary interest and ensuring that it's being used for that purpose. There's no prohibition on doing both. And I think probably most of the time there is a little bit of consideration in the form of payment for acquiring a property, in addition to promising to use it for a public purpose. So I think those are kind of the three options that the board has before it, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay. I'll open it up for discussion.
I'll start. I think we should move ahead with option 2. And the only thing we ask that, during the conveyance, that any and all, costs associated with the conveyance are borne by the chamber. But not selling them a building that was given to us for them. So that's.
Well, it was given to us for the Welcome Center.
Correct.
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 I would have to disagree. I think that one of the stipulations in the minutes from the July 31, 2012 meeting was that number 3, the town take full title of the building and maintain ownership of the building. I think that is an asset to the town, and I don't think we can just give up willy-nilly. I think the problem is it goes with the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center is, I think it's time that we looked at the occupancy tax money and where it goes and how it can be used. And we need to go to the county to do that. And I don't want to give up anything right now when we don't know what that's going to entail. In other words, we may have a local TDA here that gets the occupancy tax money, which would mean that the chamber doesn't get the occupancy tax money. So there's a lot of options open right now. And at this stage, anyway, I would say we do not convey that building. We don't make these judgments until we know what everything is going to turn out as and convey that building, when we maybe have to turn around and do it differently. So I just think that at this stage anyway, I would not be in favor of conveying that to the chamber. If it was just the Welcome Center, that is different than it is the chamber and the Welcome Center. I think there's a lot of nonprofits in town that would love to have the town give them a office space.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think we ran into that with the Playhouse, and we said we would never do that again, is because we have to treat everybody equally and equitably. And giving them office space when other people don't have office space and don't have the option of doing that does not seem reasonable to me.
Okay. I think the primary difference is the town has $0 in that building. That was given
to the town for that.
to the
purpose.
town for that purpose.
Right.
Well, the town purchased it with donated money from a private donor who can't speak now since she's gone, but
And also,
but that donor, knowing that donor was always interested in the Welcome Center. It was
correct.
not
Yeah.
the Chamber of Commerce that was giving to.
And that if that ever ceases to exist, we get it back.
Yeah, but I think that the problem is right now, we have a lot of things that are up in the air with the county and the occupancy tax money and all that kind of thing. And I think it's at this stage, it's the wrong time to be giving that asset away.
Okay, I'll disagree, but
I know,
so.
that's why I disagree with you.
I think we know where I stand on it, so I would be in favor of giving it to the visitor center chamber.
You had made a motion at the last meeting to.
Well, let's see where it goes. I'm gonna go option 2 with the chamber paying for closing costs or whatever the attorney's fees would be to make that happen.
And I'll second that.
Got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Okay, opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that's a,
I'm not
2 to
gonna give
3.
it away right now. I think it's a possibility in the future, but I think we need to work out some of these other things. Changing the tax money of the county. I think that's first and foremost, and see where we go from there.
Okay, on that premise then, based on what you just read, then we renew a lease for a period of time at $0.
I'm fine with that right now. Let's give it a year.
We talked about going 3. We wanted 10. We talked about 5. We got
Yeah,
to
but
3.
we don't know when things are gonna change.
No,
You can go
I
a year
understand
and then
that.
renew it every year.
I understand that.
Nick, what is our, situation with the lease? This has been going on now for a long, long time.
Do like 10 years, you not have to sell it.
I mean,
So
Well-
currently, the term of the lease does not expire till 29. So, you know, I think we were going to renew it to, to be for longer, and we were going to have the $40,000 landscape period. That's where we last left it. We put that in their hands. So the question now is, are we going to continue? to
Do
request
we have
that?
a temporary lease from month to month in place because of, insurance considerations and things
we
like
had a
that?
1-year lease, remember?
1
that
year.
We gave them a year or so ago. That we could just renew that. I will point out that in these minutes from it specifically says the chamber would lease it from the town at the time.
Right.
At the time, we went to $1 a year lease.
Yeah, it was
because they had to
understood that it
move
was less.
significant amount of money in there to upgrade it. That was never going to be a forever thing.
I don't think when the donation came in 2012, that the thought was, well, once they get more money, charge them 40,000 a year. I
exactly.
don't think that, the premise was that you would lease it from us. I mean,
Yes, from the beginning, they were be leasing.
okay, and that's fine,
But it also went to the town because it was just, it would fall under the town's general liability insurance. I mean, that was the whole thought of giving it to the
And
town.
there were tax,
No,
write-off
tax benefits
considerations.
too.
Well,
too.
no, I understand that, but I mean, I think the general, there was tax benefits for the donation, but,
Well, I think I think all parties were certainly cognizant of the amount of money that it was going to take to renovate that building. And certainly, as you look back over the years and amortize the amount of money that they had put into it versus the amount of money that would have been charged for rent, it's coming out to about $3,600 a month.
okay.
I mean, we all went into it with eyes wide open,
Yeah.
knowing that it was going to take a chunk of money.
But they're still going to continue to do that, but then we were
But there's
also,
not that chunk of money that has to be paid out. I mean, there's not
It's
a
done.
total
So-
renovation of
so they're-
that building that's needed.
I see that as penalizing them for spending all that money.
Well, I
They should have
see-
slow played
I
it.
see it
There's
as,
no penalization.
I
I mean,
think,
we're trying to charge them now.
I see that it's penalizing us for being, trying to help them out and not charging rent to them from the beginning.
It-
We even waived all their utilities fees for a year to help them
Well,
out.
that was very nice of you all, but my whole point is the building was given to the town, given and or purchased through money donated for that purpose. It was not meant to become a revenue stream for the town.
yeah.
But the problem is it could be a revenue stream pretty easily for the town. Not a huge revenue stream, but it is still the principle that everybody has to pay rent for their office space.
Okay, $10 a year.
A
No, I'm
reasonable
serious.
rent for their office space.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I pay rent for my office space, but nobody bought the building for purposes of giving it to me to have. I mean, I pay it to a for-profit person. We're a municipality where Jane, we all know who it is. Jane gave $700,000. Gus and Jan reduced the price so that the town could get it, and there were tax advantages for both of them. Everybody knows that. Giving it to the town gave them the ultimate tax advantages. And then it was meant for the visitor center. And when it says it would lease it back to him, Jane did not intend, in my opinion, for then the town to charge $40,000 for the building.
Well, but Jane never gave to operating expenses.
I understand that.
But
What operating
that's an
expense?
operating expense. We're
What-
giving them a zero operating expense, a zero rental expense.
Understand.
Okay, so she doesn't give for annual funds and she builds but she's a bricks and mortar, or was a bricks and mortar giver. Okay, and then it was for a specific purpose, and this purpose was for the Welcome Center. The problem is right now is the only reason that the chamber is even attached to it is that they control the occupancy tax money.
Yeah, this is.
And the occupancy tax money has come up and now we want some of it. That's really the premise of this whole discussion.
Right.
They have more money, so we want some.
Because we want some of it, but because some of the things that they do impacts us that we have to pay for.
Well, at the last meeting, nobody was arguing the fact that we can talk about the legislation, talk about how it goes. I mean,
Well,
but,
nobody was
and I don't
arguing
want to
that.
use a building as leverage to do so. I mean, that's not,
Well, I
it should
think,
be a partnership, not a,
well,
right
I know-
now, we're not.
it will be, but it's not a partnership if we give the building away now.
Okay, then let's rent it back to them for $10 a year, as was originally intended.
And that's what we're saying, and it will be for the
But you're talking about a
to-
year.
That's right.
Until we resolve this.
Get this resolved.
Okay. And then, so we're gonna continue to talk about it for.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion for 1 year rental?
Sorry, can I just ask for some clarification? Because I'm coming into this new.
Yeah.
I have the lease that we drafted last year that is the $1 that includes we added the $40,000 maintenance amount for. Are we saying whatever is currently, we're not going to proceed with that lease? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Right.
So whatever is the current lease that you all are operating, a year-to-year lease?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct.
but currently isn't it month to month or is it year to year?
Yeah, we don't have a currently valid lease at this point. I don't-
We're month to month right now.
Month to month.
Month to month, okay. And is there something that's in writing that's that month to month or, because I have not seen that.
I believe we passed
I think that just be
that at one
minutes.
point, yeah. Because of insurance and liability issues that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
If you want to, we can just continue this and let Nick research that and come back to us.
Well, and that we had a couple of years ago, we had a 1 year lease
Right.
when we were trying to still work it out. Right.
Do you want me to proceed with the lease and just make it a year-long lease, but with all the other provisions minus the $40,000 maintenance amount? Is that,
I think
would
that's,
that be preferable?
Mhm.
yes.
I can do that.
And shall we take a vote on that?
Yes, please. do.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we proceed with a $1 a year lease for 1 year for the chamber, for the visitor center.
Okay. Second,
Second.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand, saying aye, and opposed, same sign. Thank you. We will proceed then. 3-2 vote. All right, thank you. Our next item will be the Unified Development Ordinance, Section 8.3.2, floor area ratio, B1 commercial building restrictions of 1.4 to 1. And that's Michael Mathis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at the request of the board, the planning board met and discussed section 8.3.2 of the Unified Development Ordinance and if it should be removed. The planning board recommended that section 8.3.2 of the UDO be removed because the UDO already regulates building height, habitable stories, and built upon area. Additionally, they had added that if a town is going to have density, it should be along its main street. And the reason I added that of what they said is because y'all didn't have a copy of the minutes. They're not prepared at this time. So that was their thoughts. And then, of course, the staff recommendation tonight would be for the town board to schedule a public hearing for the June 19th, 2025 regular meeting.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Mathis?
So my question would be, does that take care of the problem that you saw?
It does and it doesn't. We've talked about a couple of things. The one thing we do not want, in my opinion, only at this point, in town is a 3-story building with a flat roof. It's not in the context, it's not in the fabric of the town, it doesn't have the right scale or anything. So right now, there's one little gray area that I have a concern with that we need to address to make sure that we don't have changed the fabric. And that is, right now you can have 3 habitable stories. Okay, let's start back up. B1 in the architectural guidelines require a minimum of 7 and 12 pitch roof. Okay, but it says you can have 3 stories plus exclusive of attic and basement. So if you're on side of the hill, which in B1 really doesn't affect many people, but, you can have a basement, doesn't count that because it's not part of your building height really, because it has to be subgrade.
It's below ground.
Yeah, then it says you can have 3 stories, plus you can have an attic, but there's an exemption to where you can have a flat roof if it's a habitable space like a rooftop terrace or whatever.
Dining,
And
rooftop dining.
rooftop dining.
Yeah.
And my concern is, I'm fine with having rooftop dining on a 2-story building,
Right. that-
but I am not
that
good.
story.
So just to clear it up completely, I think it should be 2 stories exclusive of basement and attic. There should be really no context.
I see what you're
You
saying.
see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I think to go with-
Or the other solution is that a rooftop terrace is counted as a story. And that solves the same issue. You could never have a 3-story building with a rooftop terrace,
So how
which
do-
means you can't have a flat roof if you don't have a rooftop terrace.
So how would you amend this?
I would amend it to say that I would, somewhere in the ordinance, if, and Nick can speak to this too, is that if you have a habitable roof, which is in B1 is the only place you can have that exemption, to where you can have a flat roof to replace a 7 and 12 pitch roof. You can do that, but it then is counted as a story if it's habitable.
And you only have 2 stories.
Well, then you can only have 2 plus habitable. So you can leave it the way it's written as long as as the rooftop terrace is counted as a habitable level. Do you see what I'm saying?
So you just need to add that.
I think that's the better way to write it.
Okay.
And we did talk with Nick. He has reviewed it just to see, because it does say habitable stories. And my initial thought was the rooftop dining would be a habitable story. However, Nick had said, obviously, we don't define habitable stories, so our ordinance requires us to go back to the dictionary definition. So at that point, he said, dictionary doesn't really define habitable as what rooftop dining would not qualify as a habitable story based on the definition of habitable. So it could be something, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, changing habitable story to occupiable space. And that could be a fix that could do it. Either you could drop it down to 2 stories max, or you could just change habitable stories to occupiable space.
Either one solves it.
So this is,
Well, wait. Habitable story, occupiable story, isn't that an attic too?
Well,
Yes, but the way it's written right now, it says 3 stories exclusive of basement and attic. And the attic is defined that your rafters have to come down to the floor, they minimum 712, you can have only 50% of one side could be dormers, et cetera, et cetera. So it looked like a 2.5 story.
Okay.
So, but the way it's written right now, you're never going to get it in 35 feet, but you could have 3 stories plus an attic by definition. You're never going to get it in 35 feet.
And-
But my concern is that people can put, the way it's written right now, if an occupiable roof is not defined as habitable space or a story, then you could have 3-story buildings with a flat roof and the fabric of downtown is completely ruined.
with rooftop dining, therefore you got 4 stories, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You've got
Right.
the 3
But we have to
stories plus
define that.
rooftop dining.
So just by defining it from habitable to occupiable,
That would be one fix. That was something Nick had brought up. And then, of course, as Commissioner Weller said, you could just take the max down to 2 stories.
Yeah, I think defining a rooftop terrace as a level
Yeah.
is
is the easiest.
the cleaner way of doing it.
I think it's the cleaner way of doing it. Don't you?
Well, if you change habitable story, you've got that in all commercial districts. So are you going to change that definition for all commercial districts and all?
Well, but you can't have a flat roof terrace in B2 or B3 or
I
B4.
understand that. But if you're going to say habitable stories,
Right.
change habitable stories to
Occupiable
occupiable,
space.
whatever, then you're going to have to do it for every.
I don't think you need to change the number of
B2, B3.
stories if you define rooftop terrace as,
I
it
think
takes
that-
out that exemption in B1.
Nick, what do you think about adding a definition for habitable stories that would include rooftop dining in our UDO?
I think that's probably going to be the better approach, because otherwise you're going to run into Senate Bill 382 concerns. If you change, you're going to create some nonconformities. Yeah.
I hate to laugh at that, but
You've already got-
Remember, we now, as a local government, can't change.
Can't
the
change,
UDO.
but we can add a definition of the rooftop terrace
Right.
being a habitable level.
I think that's a lot, like,
I'm
tweaking the
100%.
definition is a lot less likely to.
Right, because
be
down
down
in B1, I don't want people not to be able to have a 2-story building with a rooftop terrace. That would be a positive thing.
Yeah.
but a three-story building with a rooftop terrace would be horrendous.
Well, you got one with OEI
Well, kind of.
going up the hill on
But
the
on,
left.
but on the backside of that building, the backside of the building is actually a basement, a level, and the rooftop. Because it's more than 50%
grade.
below grade, like the bathrooms and everything back in there, the wine room, all that's in the back. So it would still fall in that definition. That would have been allowed. We're not negating that. But I just don't want to see a three-story building that are all out of the ground, that's 35 feet, and then rooftop terrace on top.
Well, the only difference between the 2-story and 3-story then would be the point of primary entrance.
Well, yes and no. Yes, correct. But the way the ordinance is written, the way it's written right now, if the rooftop terrace is not habitable, you could have 3 stories, 35 feet rooftop terrace. And that's the only way to get an exemption from having a minimum 7 and 12 pitch roof, is having habitable space on the roof. Right, that's the only way you're allowed to do it. It's only B1 where you're allowed to do it. So by making that a habitable level, if you want a rooftop terrace, you're only going to be a 2-story building with a flat roof. That's what it does. You see what I'm getting at? You can still have a 2-story, if you don't want a rooftop terrace, you can do 2 full stories and a 7 and 12 pitch roof minimum, and stay under the 35 feet from your main entrance. Properties on the hill are the only place that really have this issue
Yeah.
of 35 feet, but and Old Edward's an old building, but if you come from the sidewalk in front of the building, it's taller than 35 feet. I mean, but
Well,
it's
the
obviously
entrance off
grandfathered.
the sidewalk, the second entrance up was never supposed to be a public entrance. Anyway.
No, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't draw any of that, but,
Anyway, you've got it figured out how we can make that
Yeah.
work.
I believe Nick
Chapel's gonna
does.
do it?
I'll
Yeah.
defer to Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can put some options together either for the two and then the
no, and
five.
actually, Nick, I think, I mean, we could put options together for discussion, but I still think that changing that definition and making a rooftop terrace a habitable level
That's pretty
negates
simple.
any and all concerns.
Yeah, and then remove the 1.4 to 1 would be the proposal that we would
Correct,
bring
those
back
two things.
for the public hearing.
But Michael, you're asking for.
Yeah, just to
a vote on
set a public hearing
Public hearing.
to kind of.
Can
follow
we
the
do
process.
that and then Nick, based on Commissioner Weller's, concerns, develop the language that would address that at the same time before
Yeah.
the public hearing?
And yes, and y'all will have copies of that
And you'll
amended
bring it to
language
the
at this,
public hearing.
at the public hearing.
Yeah, so that's what they would be
Yeah.
called.
Does that work,
That's
Nick?
what they would be.
Yes.
To.
Okay.
Yes.
I make a motion to set a public hearing on June 19th. Is that correct?
Yep.
Mhm.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
do that. Thank you, Michael. Okay, our next item, number 13, Highlands Outdoor Recreation Use Policy Amendment. Nick Tosco.
Yes, you will remember we discussed this in closed session, and that was regarding some legal concerns that I had. And you all instructed me to try to come up with a draft that addresses some of those, and then also just make some conforming stylistic, just kind of clarifying changes, which is what I did. And that's what's in your packet that you have for you. And so I summarized in the memo what those changes were, but the red line is included, and I think they're pretty self-explanatory, but happy to answer any questions that you all have.
I think it looks
I'm
fine.
comfortable with it.
Okay,
I'll move we approve the new policy for the outdoor recreation area of
Second.
Kelsey
Second.
Station.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. All right, thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Our next item, number 14, Oak Street employee parking restriction. And this is Commissioner Patterson's request.
Actually, it wasn't just Oak Street. I was gonna want us to look at all
Okay,
parking because we haven't looked at it in
we'll go right
6
ahead.
or 8 years or something. And it would, Oak Street was the example that I gave, but.
Okay.
But because, so I think one of the things that we're constantly being asked is where can we find more parking? Well, it could be just that we need to revise where the restricted parking is. And because coming up Oak Street between Fourth and Third, is a short, quick walk, and it's gonna even be shorter and quicker as people, as the Scudder building gets moved around and that kind of thing, so that they're gonna be able to get to the main part of Main Street pretty easily if we allow them to park. And this is not just for the businesses, this is for all the people who actually want to come and shop. You know, this is for me who wants to, at some point, want to park there and not have to walk from out there at First Street. And I don't know if anybody else has looked at this or not, but what I was suggesting is those 12 spaces that are directly at the corner of Oak and Fourth, which are against the town hall, become restricted from employee parking. The other two are parallel parking across the street. That could be restricted. Maybe the other thing is I don't know if we're actually utilizing the 8 or 10 places at the old playhouse. You know, that could be parking at least until we start tearing things down or whatever we decide to do there. The 5 spaces at the back of the Cannon building on the south side, that's unrestricted parking, and that should be restricted because you can get out of the car and directly walk through the Cannon building to get to Main Street. Potentially and these are all just suggestions, I'm not saying that, potentially the parking that'll be in front of the new townhouses on the corner of Oak and Maple could be restricted parking because that would move everybody back down. I mean, basically you have, I don't know, 25 or 30 spaces down that are never used, that behind 200 on Main and out on the other side of the street and against their railroad tie wall that are never used. And I don't think that's too far of a walk to go if you're going to if you're an employee in town. And that definitely, when people come and make that turn, either down 4th Street or down 3rd Street, they're trying to find a parking place. It'd be nice if they could actually find one on that back street, because that's the closest place that we have parking. Other than, I mean, it is the closest place to Main Street that we have parking. And I think you are going to be gaining somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 spaces or so in that area, because that's the first thing they see. The people who turn off Main Street where they could go.
It is.
Yeah. I know people want to be able to park there, but you know, the employees are being able to park there. But I think for the benefit of the downtown, we've restricted Main Street, we've restricted up 4th Street in the other direction, we've restricted Church Street. All those places. I don't know why we couldn't restrict the Oak Street, particularly because now we have the liquor store there. We're going to have the opening from the Scudder building on that side. The Cannon building already opens on that side, so that it's an easy access as a pass through to Main Street. Those are my thoughts.
And my observation is this. On one hand, we're trying to support our visitors that come down to downtown, which is very important. On the other hand, I know some of the employees at businesses might not like having to, park further away. So, it's just kind of a balancing act that we're dealing with here, how to manage that parking distribution.
Well, along those lines, I mean, it's just interesting when you look at this. I mean, and I've been aware of it forever, but like the parking spots right in front of my office, all the way down at Farmers Market are restricted.
Nobody really parks.
Nobody parks there.
I know.
But,
That's why I wanted to look at the whole
but
thing.
then like a half a block off of Main Street, it's not restricted. I mean, I'm just saying, it's a bit, and I really don't care for my office because we have a parking lot. So, I mean, granted, I park there sometimes because I'm only in and out, but, I don't know. And also other things, when you mentioned, and the, chief and, Lynn Call can speak to this, but that parking lot in front of their building is always full. It's always full. Yeah, completely. So it is parked up with employees. And again, when you're talking about places for restricted parking,
Well, to me, the difference for that is I'm not sure a visitor is gonna know that I can park in front of the police
Yeah, we've
department,
never think to
well,
park.
that's quite possible.
you know?
Because I saw at least 4 employees walking in there today.
Right,
when I was over there.
that's what I'm saying, it's
They all
that,
know to park there.
right, but that's one of the places, but, and that's the only reason I didn't talk about that one is because that is something that I'm not sure how many people would actually know
Well-
they could go up in there.
But, and I know we have town employee parking up in that upper lot, which is always full. There's other company vehicles there, police vehicles, et cetera. But if, and this is just one minute part of this, but if that parking lot at the police station became employee parking for town hall or partially, and then it's because some of them park,
Well, or the parking lot that already has a lot of the town.
yeah, it's always full,
I know, and that's,
always.
but we could make that be employees,
Yeah.
town employees only,
Yeah.
or just employees.
I just think this is
It's
something.
our guides come in early.
I just think it's something, I think we should all take the entire plan and come back and have a discussion about it, all of it, like everywhere.
Well,
And I realize we talked
and
about
that-
Oak, but
well, and that's what I intended it to be,
Yeah, I
not just, Oak was just an
This is a
example of
rollout.
one of the places that we should be looking at.
yeah,
I mean, you could look at Fifth Street, you know, in front of the Episcopal Church or down that way, because of the folks there at, whatever it's called now, where the
the falls,
huh?
Oh,
Christie, I mean,
The,
Alpine, Elevation Vacation Rentals or whatever it is, they're the old, knitting shop, you know?
yeah.
yeah,
So I think there's a lot of things that you could look at. I was only talking about those because I think those are the closest to Main Street.
let me propose this. Is this something that we should try to hammer out, or would this be something that maybe the planning board could look
I
at
think it's worth sending it to them.
planning board, definitely.
and let them come
That's
back
fine.
with recommendations?
Just more eyes and then we look at what they come back with.
Okay,
Works for me.
we need a motion on that, or just,
I'll make a motion that we send the parking plan, to the planning board for, further study.
I mean, we actually probably need to update it because we don't have the EV parking on here anyway, so we need to look at
Yeah.
that.
It's listed, but
But it's not
but it
on
doesn't
here.
show it.
Yeah.
okay, got a motion? Second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item that we had added was the former Playhouse Building asbestos report. Josh Ward.
So Alpha Environmental has completed the asbestos report. You had it, it was sent as a supplement to your packet. For the former Playhouse building, the report detected no asbestos containing material. Asbestos containing material is any material, containing greater than 1% asbestos, which are the standards established by the Environmental Protection Agency. Therefore, the demolition of the building can be carried out after obtaining a permit from the Macon County Building Inspections Department. If the board chooses to move forward with the demolition of the building, the board would direct staff to seek bids for the removal. And the asbestos report would be included within the bid documents for review by each contractor. So staff would look for direction on the former playhouse building.
I think that was the first step, and I don't think we made any decision on basically.
I think the next step would be to seek bids, direct the town manager to, on demolition, getting bids on that, and then make a final decision after that.
Okay, you don't want to have a plan for what he wants to go in there beforehand?
No, I think that that will be a follow-up afterwards.
Plan for what goes, what to do with the property. Before,
I think the
Get bids.
the removal,
Do anything.
no, you don't.
Did it make a decision?
Yep. So what the town manager is asking for, I think, Josh is just asking for direction and getting authorization to seek bids for. the removal
Get
of the
bids,
building.
that's mine.
for the demolition of both buildings
Right. Mhm.
Look, we don't have to do anything.
fill in the hole. I
Feel
mean,
it.
huh?
Yeah, to fill in the foundation, or whatever the foundation is of that
For
building.
the basement.
We can include that.
Level out the rock,
Huh?
level out the rock.
Right, well, it's rock, but it's underneath. Yeah, it's below grade.
Yes, you get under the whole thing.
And there are,
You don't
and going
want
back
to.
to the parking plan, there is some parking up there that has been being used by some of the contractors there on Scudder Building, so there's several parking places there that could probably be opened up and added to the parking plan.
Yeah,
at some point.
one of them's a handicap, and since we don't have anything handicap going in there, we get rid of that, and open up that, so you got 10 spaces up there right now.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for seeking bids. Well, we can, y'all just want to,
Just instruct to get bids. Do we need formal action?
no,
We're not gonna act on anything.
nope, okay.
We can move forward with that and then
Give an idea
bring the
what-
bids back and then.
Give us an idea what it's
Doesn't have
gonna cost.
Proceed with that, but we
Okay.
still have bids on it.
All right. That'll be the next step then. Yep, very good. All right, the last item, the big item of the night, for fiscal year 2025-26 budget presentation for the town of Highlands. Josh Ward, our town manager.
Mayor Patrick Taylor and Town Board of Commissioners, I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2025-26 budget for your review and consideration. As required by the general statutes of North Carolina, the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, the revenues and expenditures presented within the budget are balanced. In order to present a balanced budget, it was necessary to appropriate $2,665,632 from the undesignated general fund balance, $499,845 from the water fund balance, and $2,642,878 from the electric fund balance. These fund balance appropriations were used to offset capital project deficits and debt service within each department and operations within the general fund. The current general fund reserve is approximately $3.5 million. The current electric reserve fund is approximately $2.4 million. The budget highlights as presented, the overall fiscal year 2025-26 budget has revenues and expenditures totaling $40,825,628. The ad valorem property tax rate remains 10.22 cents per $100 evaluation. Tax rate does include a 1.5 cent earmark for street paving projects. With the continued need for resurfacing town streets, the amount is again figured into the tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. The need for the earmark will be reviewed on an annual basis. The valuations are determined by the Macon and Jackson County tax departments. The rate is based on an overall approximate valuation of $2,985 million and an estimated collection rate of 98%. The Highlands Fire Department tax rate remains 1.91 cents per $100 valuation. The rate is based on approximate valuation of $5,980 million and an estimated collection rate of 99.62%. The current Town of Highlands charges for electric service remains unchanged. The sanitation department located within the general fund includes an increase to both residential and commercial rates. Residential monthly rates increase $3, while the commercial monthly rates increase more depending on the receptacle types and number of pickups per week as described in the chart within the town's fee schedule. The Town of Highlands monthly base rates for water and sewer for residential and commercial customers increases 10%. The usage fee above 5,000 gallons increases from $7.50 to $9 per 1,000 gallons used. The local option sales tax distribution is projected to remain strong, as well as the ad valorem property tax collection. The proposed budget includes a 3% cost of living adjustment for employees. The employee health insurance premiums with Blue Cross Blue Shield North Carolina increases 6.3% over fiscal year 2024-25. The general fund includes 2 new full-time police officer positions in order to provide 3 officers on each shift. The capital expenditures included in the budget total $19,899,695, of which $13,086,495 is funding provided from 3 grants. Total expenditures for each fund funds are split between the individual funds as follows. General fund is $9,476,910. Scholarship fund, $105,500. Fire department fund, $1,915,500. Fireman's relief fund, $30,000. Cemetery fund, $71,000. Water enterprise fund, $2,765,345. Sewer enterprise fund, $890,000. Capital projects fund, $16,308,495. Electric enterprise fund, $9,262,878. Total expenditure, $40,825,628. The general fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 2025-26 general fund budget are split between the individual departments and funds as follows. Governing body, $53,760. Administration, $1,788,750. Planning and zoning, $303,900. MISGIS, $821,400. Police department, $2,277,600. Street department, $1,980,500. Public buildings, $192,500. Recreation, $786,400. Recreation pool, $318,400. Recreation ice rink, $52,200. Sanitation department, $901,500. Total expenditures, $9,476,910. Capital items within the general fund total, $1,418,600. The street department includes $449,000 for the replacement of 2 dump trucks, a replacement service truck, a replacement tractor, asphalt hot box, 2 snow plows, 2 salt spreaders, and a leaf blower for the tractor. Also included is $472,000 for paving of town streets, $37,000 for 2 crosswalks on North 4th Street, and $75,000 for sidewalk repairs. The police department includes $112,600 for 1 replacement patrol vehicle with equipment and replacement service weapons. The Parks and Recreation Department includes $118,000 for replacement strength equipment, civic center gutter replacement, community building generator replacement, community building landscaping. The Planning and Development Department includes $50,000 for UDO legal review. The MISGIS Department includes $105,000 for a replacement vehicle, ground penetrating radar, and meter software upgrades. Debt service within the general fund includes $15,698 for the Founders Park Stormwater Project. Enterprise funds, the town of Highlands operates the following enterprise funds: water, sewer, and electric. The water fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 2025-26 in the water enterprise fund are $2,765,345. Total capital within the water enterprise fund is $361,200, which includes a service truck replacement, valve repairs, various maintenance items at the water treatment plant, water tank cleans, and pump rebuilds. Debt service includes $20,685 for the Lake Sequoia Water Intake Project and $250,000 to the electric fund for repayment of an assistance loan. The sewer fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 2025-26 sewer enterprise fund are $890,000. Debt service includes $56,967 for the Mirror Lake Sewer Project. Electric fund, total expenditures for the fiscal year 2025-26 electric enterprise fund are $9,262,878. Total capital within the electric enterprise fund is $3,230,000, including the electric delivery point and system improvements of $2.8 million, contract tree trimming, $300,000, 2 pickups at $110,000, and an underground fault locator for $20,000. Special revenue funds, the fiscal year 2025-26 budget includes the following special revenue funds: the fire department and capital projects. Fire department fund, total expenditures for the fiscal year 2025-26 fire department fund are $1,915,500. The total capital for the fire department is $40,000 for a new RTV. The total debt service for the department is $612,000, which is the loan repayment for the construction of the new main station. The Highlands Fire Department provides service to the town of Highlands and a portion of unincorporated areas of Macon and Jackson counties. The revenue for the fire department is generated 100% through the fire district ad valorem property tax. The Highlands Fire Department rate will remain 1.91 cents for $100 valuation. Capital Projects Fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 25-26 Capital Projects Fund is $16,308,495. These funds are allocated for new projects, new construction projects, including the Dog Mountain water line and tank replacement, $3,386,495. Water treatment plant improvements, $6,672,000. Highway 64 force main repairs, sewer force main repairs at $1.4 million. And the Mirror Lake dredging, which is $4,850,000. The financial outlook for the town, the town's undesignated general fund reserve has decreased noticeably since this time last year. Major contributors for the decline can be attributed to the funding of several major capital projects, the inability to use the electric reserve to fund capital projects, Tropical Storm Helene expenditures, the addition of 3 new full-time employees, and the inflation experienced over the last several years. The fund balance appropriation for the upcoming fiscal year is an indicator that the current ad valorem property tax rate must be increased in fiscal year 2026-27 to balance the operations of the general fund and provide additional revenue to ensure capital needs are met in the future. The electric fund balance remains strong, but the reserves have decreased substantially due to the funding of critical electric system upgrades currently underway and continuing into the next few years. A large portion of the reserve funds were used as a loan to support the water fund balance. The water and sewer rates increasing for the second consecutive year. The funds will be available to service the debt payments to the electric reserve and will assist with the building back of the water fund balance. Beginning next fiscal year, the auditors recommendation of an annual schedule of continued small percentage increases will ensure the fund balance, the water fund balance, will keep pace with inflation costs. Without grant funding, only emergency water and sewer repair projects should be considered for the next several years until a healthy fund balance is reestablished. With the increase in the sanitation charges, the sanitation department will support its operational costs for the first time in several years. Closing comments, I would like to thank Mayor Taylor and the town board for their guidance, working with staff during the budget process. I would also like to commend the finance director and the department heads for the diligent work they put into the budget in order to ensure sufficient funding in the areas needed. In closing, I look forward to implementing this budget, and I hope that we continue to achieve our priorities and goals of providing quality public services to the community.
Thank you, Josh. And on behalf of the board, we appreciate all the work that you and your staff, department heads have put into this proposed budget. At this point, I'll entertain questions. In Josh's closing remarks, he talks about the need eventually for a ad valorem tax increase. I will say I've been tracking what's been happening in other municipalities in Western Carolina this budget year. And the trend is rate increases on utilities, water and sewer, especially. Cost of living for the employees seems to center around 3%. We're in line with that. And the pressure of increasing property taxes is something that many municipalities are doing. For example, I just read in the Citizen Times today that Asheville has proposed, I think, a 3.5 cent increase on their property tax. And they've done that now for a number of years. We haven't had an ad valorem tax increase for over a decade. And, we've had strong reserves and, we've all enjoyed the flexibility that we once had in moving those reserves around to meet, needs of replacing equipment and so forth. But, the local government commission, and we saw this coming several years ago, is now saying that those kind of reserves have to go toward the department that they're generated from. So it's really putting a pressure on us on our fund balances, our reserves rather. One time I used to really think it was wonderful that we had such strong reserves. We have seen a diminishing balance on those because we've had needs. And a lot of those needs have been very important and just critical. For example, when we had to do the little bear pen repairs, we had to write a check and get that done. And we just pulled it out of reserves. And my concern is that those good days, good times of just writing the check out of the reserve are coming to an end down the road. And we need to have a hard conversation about what do we do? Do we have more efficiency? Do we cut back? Do we raise taxes? These are the things that I think the board needs to have this conversation. We can begin it right now as we look at this proposed budget.
Well, one thing everybody I think would agree on is the dynamic of this town has changed to not be a 7 or 8 month town. It's become a year round town, even by homeowners, taxpayers. They're using their house more. They're here. Many, many more people live here year round than they used to. So services are in a higher demand, at least that's my perception. So we'll just have to see how we can swing that movement going forward, but it's definitely, I think we all know people and have clients and et cetera that are here all the time now. They were here 5 or 6 months in the past, so services demand and costs go with it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when there was the reval, you all stayed revenue neutral, correct?
We've always done that.
Yeah, that's what I understood. I just want to make sure.
Doing that, but when you think about just over 10 years, the basic inflation scale, we haven't addressed. With that said, we've had a lot of building, construction, and every time somebody puts up a multi-million-dollar house, that
Generates more of
helps
that.
offset those. But it's getting to a point where with that, those kind of new
Keep up.
things that they expect services and things. And, it's like, I was just looking, we'll spend $500,000 on road paving and sidewalks this year. We've been really aggressive in really getting our roads in shape. That's good, but people want more sidewalks and all of this stuff. And we've got to have a hard conversation with the public and among ourselves. How do we meet those needs if that's what people want us to do? And what should we do? What are the options? Any other comment?
Well, I think that's a long discussion that we can't start tonight.
That's multiple work sessions.
Yes.
Between here and the next process.
I hear you,
So-
but I want to say this.
Yeah.
When I first became mayor, we had to increase, we had a tax rate because we'd been kind of kicking the can down the road with the rec park. And we had to say, we've got to catch up and we've got to do this. I guess what I think the town manager and the mayor are saying tonight is warning Will Robinson, we've got problems ahead, and it's important that we don't just, ignore it, but have that long and difficult discussion going into next year. And I think you've even suggested, let's start looking at this, how we can cut, or what can we do to make sure we have a solvent, budget. And this might be an ongoing process for months before we go into the next budget
Right,
cycle.
before we look at the, don't just try and jam it in the budget season, get it done before that time. Because we have
Realistically,
both enterprise funds, which have to pay for themselves, but we also have the general fund, which now we've used sanitation in there, streets are in there, police is in there, recreation is in there. So that generates a lot of services that are needed to be met, and those are typically met by ad valorem taxes and sales tax. The fees going into the general fund help, and we're trying to make sanitation where it covers operation, but it won't cover the capital. So we've got to figure out how we cover everything else, mostly in that general fund. Because that's where the ad valorem taxes go is,
we've been chipping away at those things,
yeah,
but
but
I agree, don't wait till next year and then we'll figure it out. I think we should actually have this on every other work session moving forward. This should be at least 20 or 30 minutes of a discussion.
Yeah.
To have it. I mean, we need to start talking about it because it's not going to be figured out.
no.
in 4
And I had this discussion with Josh, and I said we should start in September because
I'm 100% with you, 100%.
it's gonna take us at least 9 months to do it and do it well. And it may be that we have no other options, but we need to be both effective and efficient in what we do. So we need to figure out how to do that best. And then once that is done, then we need to figure out what it's gonna take in a tax to be able to meet that.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Which is also a reason why we need to go to the county and try and get the legislation changed for the occupancy tax to allow us to use some of the money, the countywide, or for us either for tourist-related impacts, tourist-related expenses that we're having to completely cover now, because most of it comes out of the general fund. Everything else is paid with the fees. They're enterprise funds. So it's the general fund that's being hurt by all this impact that just additional people make. And that's why every other county who has an occupancy tax in this state uses up to a third of the money for tax-related expenses or tourist-related expenses.
And I realize it's an indicator, it's not exact, but I had this conversation just today on a project that was a very long-term project, and there were cost overruns. It was budgeted in early 2022, and it was completed a year ago. Well, typically, and I'm talking about residential, commercial construction of buildings. I realize that's only one facet of what we're dealing with, but it is an indicator. And residential construction in the year of 23, normally you can figure 2.5% to 3% in construction cost increases every single year. Okay, but the year 23, the national average on residential construction was 15.8%.
Wow.
So it's the highest rate increase since 1980 and 81. And we all know what happened in 80, 81. That's, I mean, you had 21% interest on loans and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. The economy was not strong, but it was 15.8% is what it is now. Commercial was 12.9. And that's, think about, I mean, I'm just saying, that's only one indicator. That's, and I realize we weren't building buildings
But
necessarily.
that's still an indicator.
But it's an indicator that if we worry about, if we have this little bit of increases coming in on various things, doesn't matter what it is. I mean, our sales tax has gone up some because of this, that. Well, that goes up, but a lot of other things don't. So if we're staying level and flat, problematic. So I'm just, like I said,
But that's why we need to talk about
yeah,
it.
that's why I had a long meeting today explaining why you were $160,000 over on a big project, because, you know, from budget to completion, steel went up 25%.
Yeah.
I mean, in that year. So I mean, it's just crazy stuff. So
You're on the county rec committee,
I am.
and I was listening to Commissioner Cheryl talk about what's going on with recreation in the county this week.
We had a meeting this week too.
How much money are they putting into the upgrade of the Carpenter recreation?
It's not 100% determined, but it's going to range from $2 to $3 million in the next couple of years.
Okay,
So it's
Significant.
and it's time for us to have a conversation
that I agree
on our
because,
side.
yeah.
In that same respect, because their contribution to us has remained flat for a long time.
yeah,
So I think what Josh is giving me the eye for right now is you need a motion to set a public hearing for the budget at the next. He needs to
Let's
go
not
home.
forget.
would you like to make that motion?
I'm making that motion to set a public hearing for
I'll second.
upcoming fiscal year budget at the next regularly scheduled town
Okay.
board.
And we have a second from Commissioner Weller. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. We will have that public hearing. That gets us to the end of the agenda. And I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
You have that motion.
So moved.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Good night.
Thank you, Nick.
See you, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Which part of it though?
The, we did building 2 first, and then we did building 1 and 3.